Welcome to my kitchen. This week, I want to share with you guys what we typically eat in a week around here. So the first thing I have going is chicken breast in the Instant Pot. We use our Instant Pot all the time. It's probably one of our most used kitchen tools outside of like the stove and such. When I cook chicken breast or any chicken in the Instant Pot, I always make sure to season it with salt and pepper and then add a little bit of water so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the Instant Pot. And then I usually cook it for about 12 minutes. I started enough chicken to make 2 recipes, and so the first recipe I am making is a pasta salad. So one thing I like to do in my meal plan is include kind of a easy meal for lunch that we can make every day. These are just foods that can hang out in the fridge and we can pull them out quickly and have a lunch. So like chicken salad or pulled pork. And this week I decided I was going to try and do a pasta salad. So while the chicken was cooking in the Instant Pot, I started an einkorn pasta. And then while the pasta was cooking, I wrapped up the chicken and started shredding it. I set aside some of the chicken for another recipe that we have going later in the week. And then I started with my pasta salad. This is a meal that is just so easy to make, and normally we have everything that we need to make it on hand. So we almost always keep chicken, some form of chicken, either thighs or breast, in the freezer, and we always have a bunch of einkorn pasta lying around. And then I just go to my fridge and kind of pull whatever veggies and herbs that we have that I think would taste good. Tomatoes, onion, lemon, basil, avocado if you have it. I didn't have any ripe avocados at the time, which is a huge bummer because that's a really good filler. But anyways, once I gather all the fresh stuff that's going in, I go to my cutting board, of course, and get it all into the bowl with the pasta and the chicken. For the dressing, I did a combination of olive oil and white wine vinegar, and then obviously added plenty of salt and pepper, and I also did Italian seasonings, and like I mentioned before, I did squeeze a little bit of lemon juice in there, and that was really, really good. I do think next time I want to try and make this with herbes de Provence rather than Italian seasonings. I just really love the taste of lavender, and so I try to mix that at any time I can. The next thing I wanted to get going in my kitchen was water kefir. So I actually was able to thrift these jars, and so I needed to give them a good wash before I started adding the grains and the juice. And once I got that done, I was able to start. So I had already fermented the water kefir grains for the first time. And so this is for the second ferment to get the carbonated, yummy, soda-like drink that I love. And so the first thing I did was obviously separate out my water kefir from the grains so that I could easily add it to the jars. And I am just adding a 1/4 cup of grape juice and then topping off the jar with water kefir. Now, you guys won't see the final result of this water kefir until probably the next video because it's winter, and so these take longer than a week to ferment. So I am just setting them aside until they get carbonated and yummy. The next meal we had this week was a pizza. So in addition to trying to plan an easy grab and go lunch type of meal, I also try and plan a pizza every week. We have an outdoor pizza oven. It's called an uni that we use really frequently and we love it. So that is something I like to do every week. This particular week, I totally dropped the ball on getting my dough made in time, so I had to use instant yeast instead of sourdough, which is totally fine. I have favorite recipes for both. For the instant yeast recipe, I like to follow the King Arthur baking dough recipe that they have. All pizza dough recipes follow a really similar formula. It's basically just flour, salt, olive oil, water, and then whatever you are using to make it rise. So sourdough or yeast, whatever you have. So I just add all of the ingredients to the mixer and then I let it mix this particular recipe until it comes together. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes for it to come together completely, and so during that time, I can usually get my entire kitchen cleaned. One of the things I love about our kitchen is the size because it is big enough for us to do pretty much everything we want to do. I never feel limited by the space, but it's small enough to where I can clean it really quickly. So normally it only takes me about 10 minutes to get the kitchen basically completely clean. Once the dough has come together and it is done mixing, I simply just take the bowl off the mixer and cover it in plastic wrap. And then for this recipe, I let it bulk ferment for 45 minutes before I put it in the fridge and carry on with my day as usual. Now, in order to have an efficiently run kitchen and create meal plans, I have to keep our deep freezer in order. So we buy almost all of our meat in bulk from my sister. My sister is a farmer who raises chicken, pork, cattle. So that is where we get our meat, and we almost always have a freezer full. So I want to show you guys my simple way for keeping track of what we have on hand. Basically, all I do is go through the freezers. We actually have 2, and write down every single thing that is inside of it on my notes app on my phone. It is not very sophisticated, and when I'm done, this is what it looks like. I have an organized freezer and a list of all the cuts of meat I have in my phone so that when I go to meal plan, I don't actually have to run down to the freezer and see what we have. Back in the kitchen, it is time for our pizza night. So the very first thing I have to do about an hour before we actually want to start rolling out dough and making the pizzas is divide and shape the dough so that it can kind of do a second rise. I don't really know if instant yeast needs to do a second rise. I know sourdough does, but anyways, I let it cool down and this is just how I do it and it's always worked. So while that's happening, I am gathering the ingredients for our pizza. We are doing a Thai chicken pizza this time. So we recently tried this pizza at a local restaurant and it was so yummy and it really stood on its own without cheese. And if you're new here, I can't have dairy. And so a pizza recipe that stands on its own without cheese is very hard to find. And so we always try and recreate them when we do. My husband rolled out the dough and got the crust ready, and then I started prepping the ingredients. So the first thing that we had on it was cucumbers. I just made them into slices and tossed them directly on the pizza just like that. I'm using prep bowls to get everything set aside just because it's so easy to dress up the pizzas when you do that way. And then we also did cashews. This added such a good crunch. Some cilantro, of course. Cilantro just adds the best flavor. And then, of course, onions. I add onions to basically every pizza that I make. So for this Thai pizza, we did a sweet chili sauce as a base. I just got the sauce directly from Trader Joe's and that's what we used. And then I started adding all the toppings. One thing we learned for the first time is that unis and propane tanks do not work whenever it is 0 degrees Fahrenheit outside. So we had to bake them in the oven. It was totally fine. They were still really good. Of course, we wish we could use the uni, and we will get to do that whenever it's not so cold outside. Over the weekend, I wanted a really easy lunch, and so I went to one of our favorites, which is burger bowls, which is basically just a burger on a salad, and we even make fries to top them with. And so I cut up some fries to get them in the deep fryer, and while the deep fryer was going and the ground beef was browning, I did a quick clean of the kitchen just because I think it's so easy to clean while you cook. And I got the fries going in the deep fryer. And basically all you do for this recipe is prep burger ingredients on a salad. And so I cut up a head of romaine lettuce and got it put into 2 different bowls for us while the burger was browning and the fries were going. And then there's also this really special sauce. Now this is obviously the best part because like ground beef and fries on lettuce isn't too groundbreaking. However, if you combine it with a really good sauce, it's awesome. So it's mayo, Dijon mustard, ketchup, onion powder, and garlic powder, and then you just mix it up and put it right on top of the bowl. The next day, we had the privilege of hosting some folks for football Sunday. So when it comes to hosting for a football game, I usually go towards a wrap or a chili. And this week I decided on a wrap. Lately, we have been really digging these Hawaiian chicken wraps. They are so yummy. So obviously that starts with pineapple. I'm a big fresh pineapple person. I never get the pre-cut. I shouldn't say never, but I try not to get the pre-cut pineapples because 1, I feel like cutting pineapples is kind of fun, and 2, they look pretty on my counter. This recipe is an Instant Pot recipe. Like I said, we use our Instant Pot all the time. I think this is now 3 out of 4 recipes have used the Instant Pot for the week. So this recipe is made with chicken thighs, which I strongly prefer, and you just add all the ingredients to the Instant Pot and hit go. So it's chicken, onion, I'm adding back in the pineapple that I cut, and then some spices and sauces. So it's hot sauce, mustard, garlic, chili powder, cumin, and salt. Now, I'm sure most people know this, but you can actually cook chicken frozen in the Instant Pot. You just have to add a bit of time. And so basically, I just get my meat as thawed as I can and then set the Instant Pot based on how much time I think it'll need to get fully cooked. And if it's not fully cooked, you can always just pop it back in the oven quick. While the Instant Pot is going, we gathered the ingredients to make our homemade ranch. This ranch we use with basically everything. At this point, we have it written down on a recipe card because it is so yummy. The ingredients are mayo, olive oil, water, white vinegar, garlic, dried dill, parsley, onion powder, and salt and pepper. And all you do is add them all to the food processor or your blender, and then you just pulse it until it is completely mixed up. Once the chicken is done in the Instant Pot, I released all the pressure and then I removed it to shred it. So actually I had my husband shred it because he is really good at shredding chicken. And so he did all of that. And after you shred the chicken, you remove it to a pan. You're supposed to technically do it with lined with foil, but we did it with parchment paper. And you put it in the oven for a quick broil. So this just makes it to where everything gets a little bit browned and really crunchy and yummy. While my husband was manning the chicken, I started making guacamole because I just love having guacamole for chips and on my wraps. So obviously I start with avocados. This particular time I was doing 4 avocados, and I always do 1 Roma tomato to 2 avocados. So this time I needed 2 Roma tomatoes. After that, I add red onions and garlic. I don't have a set amount that I do. I'm just kind of do whatever feels right. And then once I have that, I do my salt and my lime juice and I mash it all up. The last 2 things I had to do was finish up the toppings for the wraps and get them into bowls, and then also heat up wraps for everyone to make their tacos with. This meal was so yummy and so good for hosting because people can choose exactly how much they want, what they want on their tacos. It's just really a good meal for hosting. So I was really happy with how this turned out. Thank you so much for joining me here as I share my life as a wife, a new mom, and a homemaker. I will see you guys next week.